Bizarre Brain Comics. Hey. Iced tea. Hi, I'm Gary here for Bizarre Brain Comics, where I like to talk about all kinds of comics and try to break it down for the artwork and the story. Think of it as art and literature. Today I want to talk about a comic strip, a newspaper comic strip. This is reprinted in this book. This is Johnny Hazard, and going under the title is The Abominable Snowman, but this book reprints several stories, and it's not the Abominable Snowman story that we're going to talk about. See, comic strips are considerably different from comic books. Now, for on dailies, they usually have, we're talking adventure strips here. So they have a daily continuity from day to day, and it's usually 3 panels. And we just don't do adventure strips anymore because they've reduced the size of the strips so small that you can barely see the artwork. So it has to be very simplified. But back in these days, the strips were newspaper adventure strips were very common and much beloved. Daily strips were usually 3. Some of the older ones were 4 panels long. You'd have a first panel that would recall you a little bit to the previous day. It would set forward just a little bit in the second and third, or just second if there are only three panels, and then have the next the last panel to lead it try to lead into the next day's strip. Gag panels are entirely different. And then on the Sunday strips, like when I showed you some time ago, some Burton Hogarth Tarzan comics pages, newspaper strip pages. I mean, he did the Sundays. They were large pages, have several pictures, and this is, so it was page by page. And this, Johnny Hazard, this is just going to talk about the Sunday pages. And they had a lot more that they could cover in the one page, but they still had to tie back to the previous week's strip, and then on the end have a bit of a cliffhanger or something to tie you into the next week's strip. So sometimes it was kind of fast paced. Now that's different from comic book when you go from page to page, but it don't necessarily have to hook you to the next page. Now I'll consult the big book of knowledge. In my opinion, it's unfortunate that we just don't have adventure strips anymore. There are probably a few out there, but because I love, depending on the strip, of course, the old adventure comic strips, and this is a prime example. Johnny Hazard. He was created by cartoonist Frank Robbins and was distributed by Kingfisher Syndicate. And it ran from 1944 to 1977. And it ran with separate storylines for the daily and Sunday strips. Some strips are connected, and the often the Sunday page is about half rehash the previous couple of days on the dailies, and then the second half, it steps it forward into the second the next week's storyline. Okay, and it first appeared, and Johnny Hazard first appeared the day before D-Day in 1944. If you're not up on your history, D-Day was June 6th, 1944. Johnny was an aviator who started out in the U.S. Army Corps, and later, during the Cold War, he was a secret agent type. After the war, he was a freelance pilot around Asia, and besides dealing with a variety of beautiful women, don't they all? He ran up against spies and smugglers and even some sci-fi type menaces. And it was, as I said, created, written, drawn by Frank Robbins. And he was from 1917 to 1994. See, and as well as comic strips, he wrote and drew comic books, and was also a prominent painter. He started in comics in 1939, drawing Scorchy Smith, an aviation strip. He took over from the previous artist, which is an aviation strip, and then created Johnny Hazard in 1944. And he worked on it until it ended in 1977. And he first began writing for DC Comics in 1968, initially writing for Lois Lane and then some Superboy. Later, he worked on Batman and Detective Comics, and was instrumental in helping return the Batman character to his more gothic roots. He helped reestablish the dark, brooding nature of the Bat. Throughout the 70s, he wrote and drew for both DC and Marvel Comics, including The Invaders, which I did an episode on. This is it was a wartime superhero team, and he worked on that. That's one with the Submariner and Captain America and others. And he also drew the Man from Atlantis title, which was based on the TV series of the same name from the 70s. I have some of those. And his early work on Johnny Hazard bore a striking resemblance, and it was probably intentional, to the work of master cartoonist Milton Caniff of Terry and the Pirates and Steve Canyon fame. Those were some of the big adventure strips. He did Terry and the Pirates so through the 30s and into the 40s, and then after the war he started Steve Canyon. And there's a strong resemblance between Steve Canyon and Johnny Hazard. I don't mean just physically. I mean the types of stories. I plan on doing Steve Canyon as some other time with Milton Caniff. And you got to give the guy a lot of credit for being able to write and draw 6 daily newspaper strips and a weekly Sunday strip, and write and draw comic books for decades. That's quite a job. Quite a job. Well, let's take a look at Johnny Hazard. Ha 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 ha. Yeah, there's Johnny Hazard. As it said, the Abominable Snowman. We're not talking about the Abominable Snowman story. I didn't have a title for the story I want to talk about. I do want to show you this. This is a book reprinting several of the daily strips. And these are from the 40s. The strips in here are from 1955, I believe. You can get a good idea. Because it's here. of the nature of these daily strips. And he really shows his great draftsmanship that he was able to get, and had notice all the great darks and lights, a lot of heavy blacks, gave it kind of a noir feel. And that was the same with Milton Caniff, because when you first look at this, you would think that it was drawn by Milton Caniff. And Milton Caniff was copied by a lot of artists. I plan on talking about some other strips where the artwork looks strikingly like Caniff's art. Lovely ladies, vile villains, lots of adventure. Okay, no, those are dailies. Here's Sunday strips. And we'll start right here. This is where this story begins. It comes right from, on the tail of another story. This is Johnny was on a mission into the Himalayas with. He's with a beautiful lady, but in this story she doesn't appear. I'll show you. Here she is, and I've forgotten her name. Flame, yeah. He's on this adventure with this beautiful lady, as well as some other people. They almost died because they were abandoned, and they were picked up and taken to a Tibetan monastery in the Himalayan mountains. And this is where it begins. He's in the monastery. He's talking to the abbot, and he sees this guy right here. He recognizes him. He's an old villain of his called Orchid. And what's going on here? He thought he was dead. No, he's not dead. And he's just doing some gardening work. He said he's not nervous about letting his suspicions out. You see here again the artwork. Here, Orchid bends over and a gun falls out. Well. Said, "What do you call this, Brother Orr? A new kind of weed killer? If it is, you're doing it the hard way." And you see, look at the detail on that gun. Some beautiful work and some beautiful storytelling here, because the Sunday page comes with something to a title panel right into the story. Johnny has found an old enemy working in the flower garden of the ancient Himalayan lamasery, Orchid. Okay. Then he lays his excuses, said he's reformed, he's not a bad guy, and here he is. So Johnny is lounging and still suspicious. He's lounging with Flame, and when just as he moves, a rock falls into his what would have been his head from the wall above. What the heck? Well, he's suspicious. Here he is. He's talking with the abbot of the monastery. Here we go again. Well, he's talking with the abbot and letting him know. Said yes, he goes over here where he sits and meditates every day. That's clear back here. You can see him sitting there. And then it gets to talking about this old legend about a statue. It said, "This statue, which glowed in the dark, was revered at first. The people truly thought it was a new-found god." Okay, then it talks about the statue that someone had made, and then people around it started getting sick. Many fell on dying, so they took the statue away because they felt it was evil. They took it up on a mountain someplace, hid it away, had a seal, and said, "And with them died the location of the statue. That is the legend of the demon of the lingering death, which has remained to this very day a lost and ancient enigma. Well, this gives, you can see Johnny, he's thinking, and gives him some ideas. He knows something, or suspects something. So Johnny, he suspects what this is, and he's in Orchid's room. And he sits on Orchid's bed, and he finds, what's this? Batteries? What's this? So that's unusual. And he goes up to where, snooping around, where the guy is supposedly sitting and meditating. And he slips and falls. Ah! Look at that. No reaction from him. Some good action. Some good panel to panel storytelling. He's sliding, and he almost goes over the edge completely, but he grabs onto a root, climbs back up, and then checks on Orchid, and it's a dummy. It's not Orchid at all. And that's some good tension building in the storytelling in this. There he sees it's the dummy, so he goes on, follows the path beyond the dummy, and he runs into Orchid, who's got a Geiger counter and a gun. Uh-oh. And yes, Orchid is actually after that statue. And now he's got the drop on Johnny. He says, come on, come with me, you lead the way. And then his Geiger counter, because he's been out here looking for this a long time. And the Geiger counter just goes crazy. Click, 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 click. Piece of radioactive equipment. I used to work with radioactive equipment. And there's all kinds. Not just Geiger counters, but just for simplicity's sake, we'll call it a Geiger counter. Because you see, that statue was radioactive. That's why the people were dying. I'm getting sick. So this is where it is. He gives Johnny the pick and forces him at gunpoint to start digging away. Hey, Orchid, the pick won't bite it. I think I've struck metal. Yep. There it is, the seal. That's where they sealed it away. So they have to work together. Again, even though I can see all these nice, beautiful blacks. See the intricate detail. It's beautiful anatomy on these figures. Of course, the fashions are the 50s. And some really nice colors. I don't know if these were all the original colors or if it was redone for this particular volume, which I think was published. It's an Italian publication in 1980, and I got it. I thought brand new several years ago. They get the seal off, and the thing goes crazy, and there it is. Now look at the detail in this statue. It's beautiful. And you can see the glow, the coloration here. Coloration and it's glowing. Here they are. Next page. Johnny hides his face from it because they both know that it's actually radium. The statue is made of pure radium. And this is which is radioactive material. And you've undoubtedly are familiar with radium dials on watches. Yep. That's what makes them glow. Glow in the dark. Old-fashioned watches, that is. So he goes back to where he's got a little hidden space where he's got a radio, and Orchid calls for his partner to come flying in because they found it. They found that radium statue. Johnny's still, but he says, "How are we going to get it? Because it'll kill us if we take it." But he's got radiation suits, big, bulky, lead-lined radiation suits, and equipment. It's got a canister to put the radium in, a little cart to transport it with, and things little grabbers here. So here they are. It's making Johnny pull it back up. They are working togetgoing to grab the radium while Johnny's got that gizmo. He knocks the gun out of his hand, and then they get to fighting. But it doesn't do any much good because they're so padded from the radiation suits. But he manages to knock him down and stun Orchid, and his helmet falls off. So Johnny can't leave him. He pulls him away so he's not injured. But in the process, Orchid manages to get the gun and get the drop on Johnny again. So here they are. Got the drop on Johnny, making Johnny put the statue inside the canister. And then they go out, and there's his partner coming in the plane. Call him Checkers. Yeah, hey, Checkers. Yeah, then Orchid double crosses him and shoots him. Just indicates that he shoots him. They didn't want to be too graphic, I guess. But here we go. Shoots his buddy Checkers, because he doesn't need Checkers because he's got Johnny at gunpoint who can fly for him. So they together they load it up on the plane, but Checkers isn't dead, and he climbs back, crawls back towards the plane because they don't see him. He gets in, and they get the thing secured because it's real heavy. It's a lead-lined box, and it'll go right through. Gets to bumping around, it'll go right through the aluminum skin of that aircraft. And Checkers climbs in the back compartment, and then they take off. Now here we go. Look at this beautiful rendition. All of these beautiful rendition of this aircraft. I don't know particularly what kind of plane it is. My wife would know, probably. And they go flying, and they're going through a storm. Takes them through a storm. The plane can't fly; it is too old to fly over the storm. And Checkers gets out his pocket knife and he starts cutting the lines that are securing the box. Orchid goes back to check on it and discovers this. And they're fighting for over the knife in the box, and the box busts through the door because it's heavy, it's hundreds of pounds. The line attached to the box gets hold of Checkers' foot and drags Checkers. Checkers grabs a hold of Orchid, and they both plummet, fall out of the plane. But it doesn't show us this, but tell us this. But see, Orchid has got a parachute on. So I suspect Orchid will be back. But they're out over the Indian Ocean somewhere. Look at that plane again. It's a beautiful, beautiful plane. Look at the cockpit, the instruments. It's great. It takes a lot of work and reference material and research to find all this. And then his plane crash goes down in the water, but he's right on the beach of somewhere. He doesn't know where. It is lifted high on a wave and carried dizzily toward shore, where it grinds down into the sandy beach. Next week, a new adventure, The Forgotten Garrison. Yeah, just like the movie serials from the 30s and 40s. And of course, a lot of the movie serials were based on comic strips. Flash Gordon, Buck Rogers, the like, and as I said, it goes on. See, Italian, and gets on to the next adventure. And you see what I'm talking about here. Get a good overall view of the whole panel. There's good panel-to-panel storytelling. These pictures. If we go down in the Indian Ocean, it's full of man-eating sharks. Ha ha! He was trying to scare Orchid. He probably did a good job. And from page to page. Because remember, when these were originally produced, it was there was a week in between each page when you read it. And longer than I intended, but that's fine. Wanted to give you a good view. I really recommend, if you like this kind of adventure stuff, to find, if you can, if again, to find Johnny Hazard, Steve Canyon, all these kind of adventure books, adventure strips, because they are a lot of fun to read. They sometimes get wordy because they're trying to tell a lot of story in a little bit of time, a little space. But they're a lot of fun to read, and it's different than what you get in comic books. So I hope you enjoyed my Johnny Hazard. Some great artwork, some great writing, and please like, share it with your other comic book friends or anyone interested in the funny pages. Share it with whoever you want. Thank you so much. Remember, comics are art. Johnny.